Doc, before we get into basketball, just do you have a comment on the events of today at the Capitol and just having to play a game when you're seeing things like that today?
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing, obviously, sad. But what is not is I keep hearing this attack on democracy. It's not. Democracy will prevail. It always does, Mark. It shows a lot, though. When you saw the protests in the summer and you saw the riots or more the police and the National Guard and the Army, and then you see this and you saw nothing. It basically proves the point about a privileged life, in a lot of ways. I'll say it because I don't think a lot of people want to. Could you imagine today if those were all Black people storming the Capitol and what would have happened? So that to me is a picture that's worth 1,000 words for all of us to see, and probably something for us to reckon with again. No police dogs turn on people, no billy clubs hitting people, people peacefully being escorted out of the Capitol. So it shows that you can disperse a crowd peacefully, I guess, would be the one thing. But it's a sad day in a lot of ways. It's not good for our country, more across the borders that people see this, but it's part of what we are, and so we have to solve it.
Thank you.
Next up is Keith Pompey.
Doc, is it sad that people still have to keep being reminded of stuff like this? I mean, this summer you gave a great speech. I mean, we talk about stuff that happened in the '60s, and it just seems like things just aren't changing at all.
Well, they are changing, Keith. I think they are getting better. I think today is a sign, a little bit of that in some crazy way. I don't know what way it is, Keith, but yeah. But this is not, this is more. This is not the masses. The masses have spoken. I'm so proud of Georgia. Georgia spoke. And so this is not the masses. This is a group of people who have decided to be unruly. And if we just left it at that, I think we'll all be in a better place, right? But the symbolism of storming the Capitol without force done to them, if you're a Black American, it definitely touches you in a different way. This is not a Black thing. This is an American thing again today, and we shouldn't turn it into that. But it definitely makes you think, for sure.
Yeah. Talking about basketball.
About what?
About basketball. No, right?
What's that?
No, exactly. You look, starting tomorrow, you guys have a string against, competitive teams.
Yeah.
It's not saying taking anything against Washington, but do you have to guard against, or did you tell you guys to guard against letdown tonight? Thinking too far ahead?
Well, we shouldn't be thinking ahead anyway. We haven't earned that right yet. You know what I mean? So we should be thinking with the team right in front of us. We've done nothing to be thinking ahead about anybody or anyone yet. So, I think, Keith, in our instance, we have a lot to do still as far as improvement as a team. I mean, if this is as good as we are, then it's not good enough. So we have to understand that, and we have to keep getting better.
Thanks, Doc.
Guys, let's take the 3 remaining hands left, starting with Jeff Skaversky.
Hey, Coach, kind of feeding off your last question, you've talked, Ben has talked to other players about, this team still has another level as good as you're playing. How close do you think you are to getting to that level?
Listen, I'm an optimist, but I don't want to say that we're close. And I think there's more than one level. I do, Jeff. I think we have a lot of levels to go. We have a lot of growth and execution to go. So I really believe this. I think this is the scratch of us. This is the beginning of us. But the finished product is going to be so much better.
Next up, Kyle Neubeck.
Hey, Doc. So you rather unfortunately have a lot of experience dealing with, outside things happening, impacting
Mhm.
your team and trying to, guide teams through that. I guess, how do you keep guys in the boat, so to speak, and focused on the task at hand? And is that like a person to person thing, or do you try to
Yeah,
handle it as
Kyle,
a
this
group?
is a tough one today because we've been all at home watching TV, and it's such an individual emotion, and it's almost what I was saying earlier. As an older black male, I've seen police dogs being unleashed on people, and then you see the day where there's nothing, and so that's an emotion that I have, right? Tobias and those guys probably don't have that emotion, so. And I don't know how many guys even watching TV today. You just don't know, but it's going to be the talk for both teams. Washington, just think about them. It's where they live right now, so they have a lot on their plate. Probably worried about public safety of their families. So this is a tough one tonight. I got to tell you, and we'll see how it turns out.
Thanks, Doc.
Take these last two questions here. Hugh Hopkins and then Jack McCaffrey. Hugh, go first.
Hi, Coach. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. I'm going to ask you about basketball as well, if you don't mind. You've started off the season really well, but facing two high-scoring teams in the next, 2 games with good guards. You guys, you're a bigger team. How do you think you guys are going to keep pace with the speed of the play in the next 2 games? And as a follow-up, do you think the league is starting to move away a little bit from the small ball game that sort of seemed to dominate a few years ago?
I think the league is followers. We always have been. When we won the title in Boston, I found the next 2 years everyone was trying to run our offense and do the same stuff. And whenever I saw those teams, I was very happy because I always thought, well, they're not going to do it better than us. And I'm sure Golden State was laughing for a while, watching everybody try to shoot threes and play like them, when yet they had the 3 best shooters in the league on one team. And so I think everyone is now kind of settling down and finding what they do best. It's been really interesting watching from afar. I think every team now is trying to play their style. It's a good place to be in our league. And as far as the first question, this is a good test for us. We don't have the speedy guard, that we're going to have to deal with tonight. And watching Kyrie last night, he showed what one single small man, I guess, can do. So, it'll test our defense for sure.
Last one, Jack, go ahead.
Games. I'd like to talk to you about the Sixers' home record, and I know you haven't been around for all of it, but it's 21 home wins in a row, and they haven't lost since 2019. In your experience,
I appreciate that.
And in your experience, have you seen much of home court advantage like that? And did you always find it difficult to coach against this team here? What is it about this team being able to win 21 games in a row at home and more than a calendar year without losing on that floor?
Yeah, Jack, I don't know the answer. I have been in that environment. I did coach in Boston for 9 years. So I would say that's a pretty dramatic home court advantage. I've always thought Philadelphia was a great home court. Utah, there's about 6 or 7 teams that still, to me, have that. And it's the environment. It's the fans. There's no other replacement for it. Some of these places we're talking about, Boston being one, Utah being one, Golden State being one, they've changed venues, and yet it's still a home court advantage. So the only thing that stays the same are the fans and the fever of the fans and the feeling of the fans. And I think in those certain cities, there absolutely is an advantage.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.